Hey all, Cohen here. So, I haven't made a video in a really long time, so I thought that I would make one today. I thought that I would touch on the topic of top surgery since it is become uh, more attainable for most people. I know in Ontario we have OHIP that now covers your top surgery depending on which surgeon you want to go to and what techniques you want. Pretty much it's almost all covered. McLean's does have the option to have it covered, but if you want contouring, it is an extra charge that I will reiterate is based on OHIP, not on McLean or the clinic or anything to do with them. It is based on what OHIP considers the contouring part of his surgery technique to be cosmetic, like I said. So it's one of those things where that's a different topic. There's other videos that I've done about it, so you can check out previous videos. But what I want to talk about is results and how most people feel after top surgery. And I think that a lot of people go into top surgery being super excited, which you should be. You should be so excited for your top surgery because this is a big step in your transition that is coming for you, and it's an amazing feeling to know that that's going to happen. It's happening, and you will be left with nothing here. So, one thing I want to say is be super excited. Find out all the information you can from surgeons that you are dealing with. Trust their information first. If you have friends that have gone to this surgeon as well, then if they have proper information that seems to match up with what the surgeons say, 100% trust that as well. I'd say the best thing that you can do is get yourself prepared. I have done a video where I asked a bunch of questions. It is an older video, it is further back, but to be honest, it is all still relevant. And I also have videos that give tips on how to do things, which is also relevant, and you can check that out as well. But I think mentally you need to be prepared. You need to be ready to know that, okay, one day post op, I'm not going to feel great. I just had surgery done. If you've had keyhole, it's not like it's going to be that much easier because you only have the little incisions. It's going to be just as bad, if not more so, than double incision. It all depends on the person. It depends on how the surgery goes, if there were any complications. Um, it will also depend on the surgeon that you pick. There are a lot of things that will give you that outcome that in your mind you've already thought up. So a lot of the times we look at everybody else who's already had it to say that's what I want mine to look like. But at the end of the day, we have to go into surgery being fully aware that there are risks, so something could happen. Don't panic over it though. A lot of us have anxiety, and if you get stuck on that, you're gonna have a bad time afterwards because that's all you're gonna be stressed about. So you just want to have that knowledge, but not bring a fear to it. You want to know that there are risks that could happen, there are things that could happen, but I'm going to go into this positively, also knowing that there are negative factors that could arise. So don't stress too much, but make sure that you're aware of those things. Make sure you're aware that your body is different than this person, that person, this person's body. So at the end of the day, for you to think that your chest is going to look identical to someone else's chest is not overly realistic. Everybody will look somewhat similar to somebody else, which is why if you have a specific body type, then you should be looking at pictures of people who share the same body type as you. And if you converse with those people as well and you feel comfortable enough to ask them maybe what their chest size was prior to surgery, then that might give you a little bit more information or an outlook on what you might expect to have happen. You cannot go into surgery thinking that everything's going to be a bed of roses, it's going to be easy, and I'm going to have what I want, so I'll just do whatever I want as soon as I've got it, because that is going to lead you into problems that cannot be fixed later. Um, I want to just say that I'm not bringing up negative things to scare people. I am bringing them up because I notice that in a lot of conversations, it seems like, and I'm not going to say that everybody's doing it, but just from what I've seen, it seems like a lot of people now are going into surgery with not as much information as people prior have, maybe. I don't know if it's a matter of easier it's easier to get funding for surgery now. So therefore, that part of worry and planning and progression doesn't happen as much as if, for myself, I paid out of pocket. I think it is a wonderful idea that OHIP is giving the opportunity for everybody to have their surgery funded. I think it's amazing. One thing I will say is because I had to save up this money, it gave me that window of time to really investigate what was going to happen. If you if you have a weak stomach, you might not want to do it. If you have a strong stomach, you can look up online. There are a few people who have actually had the McLean Clinic, and I think as well, maybe Montreal has actually recorded surgery while it's going on so that you can see what is actually happening, because I think a lot of it too is that it's so in depth of a surgery that if you don't have time to think about everything that's actually happening and how it's being done, then that is going to hinder your knowledge when you're post-op. So I think where I want to go from there is to say that when you go in for your surgery, make sure you're prepared. Um, I would suggest, I'll bring this up just because it worked for me. I left same day. So what I did was I got a boyfriend pillow, which is pretty much like a pillow with arms on the side. And what I did was I sat in the middle seat of the car. If you're sitting in any type of seat, you can do this. But if you actually put it behind you and then strap your seatbelt on, making sure that the arms are like snug against your side, it acts as a shock protector. So if you go over a bump or something like that, it absorbs most of it. And to be honest, I couldn't feel much of anything. There are a lot of people that will come out of surgery and feel completely fine. That was me. There are people who will come out of surgery and be dopey, and they feel good, but they're just dopey. Those are the funny videos that we get to watch later. And then there are people who come out of surgery, and whether they've had a complication, they've reacted poorly to the anesthesia, or they could just be an immense amount of pain, because everybody's pain threshold is different. For myself, I found that top surgery, I've had a few surgeries in my life, not just trans-related ones, so it wasn't the worst. It wasn't terrible. My hysterectomy wasn't horrible, but it was manageable. It was more dysphoric than anything. So at that point as well, there's other things that you have to think of and how you think about it. Because at the end of the day, we don't all experience dysphoria the same way. Some people don't experience it. Some people have crazy dysphoria. Some people have anywhere in between none to immense. So I think being mentally prepared is very, very important, especially where our community tends to have a lot of mental health issues because of how we've been judged, placed, dismissed, things like that. I also want to say when you come, I'm going to say also I want to say a lot. Rough week. We won't get into it, but just bear with me, please. You're probably also wondering why I'm wearing a muscle shirt instead of just a t-shirt, considering it's the winter. I'm going to show you my chest. That's why, but it'll come at the end. Um, 1 minute. Sorry, somebody was knocking at the door, and that's because I got a new phone after having, I think I have the iPhone 4. This one's just the SE. It was just free, so yeah. Anyways, never mind the phone. We're talking about top surgery. So, where was I going before I left you? Okay, so I'm just gonna probably go from somewhere where I wasn't even connected to, but I will get back there. So, when I was talking about after surgery. So, when you are healing, it's a very particular time for everyone. Like I said, everybody's bodies are different. We all heal different. We manage pain differently. We manage our emotions differently. So if you're somebody who has very high anxiety and you find that your body reacts a lot to your emotions, you want to make sure, like I said, mentally prepared, emotionally prepare yourself as well for how you're going to react. Some people are under the impression that the first thing they're going to do is cry because they're so happy, or that they're going to just be super, super happy. And sometimes people feel nothing. They feel upset because they see the instant effect of what this surgery was. For keyhole, like I said prior, it takes 2 times the amount of time that double incision does, which you wouldn't think it does, but it does. And when you think about the fact that they have drains And if you have double incision, unless you have an issue, you don't have drains. So with McLean, I'm going to specify that right there was with McLean. Other surgeons do it differently, but like I said, techniques are different, so therefore you have to make sure that you're not confusing techniques or surgeons as well when you're thinking of your outcomes. Um, I'm all flustered now because somebody knocked on my door, dang it. But either way, um, so emotionally, you want to make sure that you're going to be okay because some people will react very negatively, and you have to know that you have something in place because you don't want your emotions to raise and hinder any part of your healing. It will happen. We all stress. It's not something that you can easily control. I suffer from a lot of mental health issues, and I'm just glad that during my surgeries that I have had, they haven't been too crazy. It's been able to level itself out for that period of time, and I think it's because there were periods where I had to specifically wait and save up money, and it became one of those things where I just kept learning more and trying to figure out more so that I was completely in tune with everything that was going on. Now, not everybody does that, and not everybody has to do that either. You just have to know the basis of what you're doing, that it's right for you, and that this is your plan, and you're gonna do what you have to do to make yourself feel like yourself. So after surgery, just be prepared that if you had keyhole, you may have a lot of swelling because, hello kitty, you may have a lot of swelling because they just go through the little incision in your nipples and they do lipo. It's lipo, and wherever they need to get rid of fat, they're going to get it. And if they're doing the contouring as well on top of that, they're going to get all that out too. So at the end of the day, they're going from a very small hole, but taking from a large area. So you are going to feel the pain after surgery. It's not going to be easier because it's two little incisions, whereas double incision is the long ones where they do the nipple grafts if you want them, and that one is still invasive because they are cutting you open and then they're taking some of the skin that was there when they pull it back down because they're going to clear out most of everything that's up here. They just have an easier way to get at it, so it takes less time and it's more invasive, but the same amount of invasiveness if you really think about it. And I think with double incision, because McLean, again, does sutures on the inside where it is literally pressed down and all these sutures hold everything in place and then it's stitched on the inside. So all of that, you don't see any of it really on the outside. You see the lines on your nipples. You might have a little bit of sutures, but at the end of the day, that's all things it dissolves inside and it holds that down to decrease the chance of a pocket forming. And in keyhole, there is not a way to do that and secure the skin back down. So that is why there's extra risk of fluid buildup or swelling or the need for drains in this instance because their technique is that way. Now it's the other way for other surgeons. So just again, make sure you know what your surgeon is doing because you don't want to come out with something that you maybe aren't too happy with. You have to be prepared that it's going to take a while. Your scars are going to be relatively red. Your nipples are going to look like burnt bacon and like they might fall off. Your nipples are completely scabbed if you get the nipple grafts. So don't be alarmed at the fact that your nipples are literally scabs. Just try not to fuss with them too much and don't let anything directly rub too much up against them. Take care of them. Follow any instructions that you're given, and worst case scenario things sometimes can be fixed in revisions for the most part. So you want to keep that in mind as well. If something happens, there may be an option to fix it. So don't stress yourself out overly. If something does happen, you get a little bit of swelling, fluid buildup, it's something that they will look into. They will help you with that and hopefully be able to turn that negative back into a positive and help you on your way. There are people who end up doing things, overacting, overreaching before they should. Even with double incision, you do have to be careful because you're still going to pull up stuff that's trying to connect and heal together. So you do want to be careful. You don't want to take selfies like this when you're post-op, regardless of which one you had. But at the end of the day, you have to realize that by doing these selfie poses or overexerting. So if you're going and you start feeling a tug, that's your indicator. That's enough. That's too far, and you want to make sure that you're moving but not to an extent of what you're normally used to. You don't want to reach for something, you don't want this, you could pull something and cause a little bit more swelling. So just be careful with yourself. You want to take care. This is actually a very big surgery, regardless of which one you get. So I think that the over expectation of thinking that your chest is going to look identical to somebody else's is something that is not really realistic. So I think at some point we need to kind of come to a understanding in this community that we're all not going to look the same. We all don't look the same. People would love to say that we do, I'm sure, but we don't. I know people whose scars are lighter than mine. I know people whose scars are bigger than mine. I know people whose nipples look better than mine who don't. And you have to understand too, your body is not identical on both sides. So, like, here's one side of my face, the other side's not the same. So my nose is crooked, doesn't go on one side, doesn't whatever. One of my ears probably sticks out more than the other. So at the end of the day, you got to think about it as well that you are not going to have perfect little nipples. You are going to have the nipples that your body accepts. And I know that sounds harsh to say, but it's one of those things where before surgery, my nipples weren't anything amazing. I wasn't a fan of my nipples. So that's why I got nipple grafts. And at the end of the day, I have one nipple that I find looks awesome. I have another nipple that still looks awesome. It still looks like a nipple, but there is definitely like a divot or something, or like it looks like a little piece could be missing. But it's one of those things where like it's not that noticeable. So at the end of the day, if that's my biggest issue, then that's okay with me. I have really light scars, but then there's an area where sometimes it looks a little bit red. But at the end of the day, I can live with that because it's not terrible. My outcome is amazing. There are people who will need revisions. There are people who would want them, may not want them. There's a lot of people that are happy with something, even if it's not what you would prefer. So I think you have to hold yourself to your own realistic standard and not what everybody else's standards are, because every chest that comes out of an operating room looks different, and nobody can stand beside another person and say, hey, you know what, even cis people can't stand beside each other and say, like, look, our bodies are identical, because they're not. Some cis men have big nipples, some cis men have small nipples, some cis men have inverted nipples, some cis men have gynecomastia. Some cis men, it's everybody. Some cis women don't like their nipples either. Some trans women don't like their nipples. It's a matter of finding the comfort within your body, because your body is not perfect. It's actually one of the most unperfect things that you have about yourself. But that's not a negative thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show everybody my chest, and I'm about just over 3 years post-op. So the lighting's okay. So you can see, like, this is what I was talking about right here. It's a little bit of a divot that goes in. But the awesome thing is that when I get chest muscles, whenever I decide to, whenever it happens, that scar will fall under it. And, like, this is the nipple that I said, like, it looks like a nipple. It looks like a nipple. This one is a little bit rounder. And from a distance, this one I think looks like it's the better nipple. But I don't know if you can see it, but like right over here, there's a little like imperfection. And at the end of the day, ooh, you just got a close up. At the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. And I think that we all need to understand that these surgeries are so in depth and so invasive, and the healing process takes a really long time. Like 6 months, and most people are not healed. So, like the first month to 2 months, you're not going to have scabs after that and whatnot. But you're still going to have, you might have swelling, you might have redness in your scars, you might think that something doesn't look 100% right, but it's almost one of those things where it's like 6 months to a year is when you can kind of start to get critical with yourself and be like, is this what I expected? Before 6 months, things could change, so don't be too hard on yourselves, don't be too hard on your chest, and if you do have complications, try to take it in the best way possible. Don't stress yourself out, and try to get to the root of your problem and see how best it can be fixed. All I can say is to be as well prepared as you can, inform yourself, because at the end of the day, this is your body, and you need to be happy with it. We're not going to be 100% happy with ourselves all the time. No one is. So just don't be too hard on yourself, and make sure that you're happy with your decision, and that you know going forward what it's going to be like, because it is a very intense situation. It becomes daunting, and a lot of people don't have the skills to handle the intenseness of surgeries, let alone ones that are not commonly done. So just take care of yourselves, make sure that you're all good to go, and just keep your chins up, because at the end of the day, we're all here together. And, if somebody can help you get through something, you can help somebody else get through something. So take care of each other, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.